You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
This episode of Mission Log the Orville is brought to you by the Eagle Moss Hero Collector Shop, home of the official collectibles and favorites from the Orville, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate, Space 1999, and more. Discover 'tis the season for pop culture savings when you go to getyourtrekon.com. You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. Welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville. Join us as we take a swim with the crew of the USS Orville to look for meanings, morals, messages in the episode Cupid's Dagger and see if it aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. I'm Mike Richards.
And I'm Rob Lowe. Mission Log the Orville is a conversation that depends on your participation. You can share your thoughts, ideas, and you can tell us what we missed at ML_the Orville on Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook, or you can even email us at missionlog-the-orville@roddenberry.com. If you're watching this on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, you can also hit like and subscribe. And remember, we just might use your comments in an upcoming episode. And now, here's other Rob Lowe with this episode's recap.
Jessica, any way you want it?
That's the way you need it.
All right, if that's the way you want it, I'll do the
That's
prologue.
the way you need it.
Well, it's karaoke night, and Kelly is belting out Any Way You Want It by the 20th Century Arena rock band Journey. Ed admires her. Dare I say, he's making goo-goo eyes as she brings it home. Up next, Bortus. He sings. However, he demands that the audience be silent as he gathers himself to perform Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. Speaking of the Titanic, an interrupting Admiral Halsey assigns the Orville to mediate an arbitration between the Navarians and the Bruidians. Both lay claim to the same planet. However, they agreed to abide by the analysis of an ancient artifact to determine which race was there first. It's a little shaky, so Ed will arrange some unofficial peace talks while the analysis is being conducted by a forensic archaeologist. But not just any forensic archaeologist. It's Derulio, that Retepsian homewrecker who had an affair with Kelly in episode 1, Old Wounds. Act 1. A rather awkward hello. The three agree to put the mission ahead of their personal feelings. Sadly, this is easier said than done. Ed and Kelly are frustrated. Lieutenant Dan wants elevator music. And Derulio trips over Yaphet, who's on his way to make one last-ditch effort to woo the beautiful Dr. Claire Finn. Oh my god, cute little Mocklin baby alert. By the way, Bortus and Clyden are still on the outs. Unresponsive to Yaphet's channeling of Joey Ramone, Claire tells Yaphet no means no, hell no means hell no, and F no means no as well. A sad and dejected Yaphet leaves sickbay after handing Claire a bouquet of flowers. Kelly visits Derulio to tell him that she regrets their tryst, but soon becomes kind of flirty. Actually, really flirty. So flirty that she misses her assignment to greet the Bruidian and Navarian ambassadors. Ed shows up at Kelly's quarters and bloosh!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Kelrulio are up to their old tricks. Classic Derulio, man.
Do you know how hard it is to get blue out of curtains?
Classic Derulio.
Classic Derulio.
Act 2. In the shuttle bay, the ambassadors agree to informal peace talks after they settle in. That gives Kelly time to tell Alara how into Derulio she is. So into him that she's in love with him. Ed's telling Gordon how pissed he is at Kelly. So pissed that he fires Derulio, as in, pack up your stupid experiment and get off my ship. But Derulio shares the progress of his analysis. You see, another 36 hours, and they'll have an answer. Wait a minute. Ed says just 36 hours? You know, you might as well stay. Like adults. For the sake of the peace. During that time, hey man, shot in the dark. You want to grab a drink? You know, just a couple of guys hanging out. Groove, 8 o'clock? I don't know why I said groove. I never say groove. Speaking of plans, it looks like Dr. Finn has had a change of heart about Yaphet and pays him a visit in her nicest, I'll just call it swimsuit.
Oh.
Yeah. See what I did there?
Oh.
Act 3. As Ed primps for his date, like guys do, plucking his eyebrows, trying out different looks, talking it over with his best friend, trying not to get hung up on labels, man, or whether he wants to bang or get banged by Derulio. Enough debate. It's time to go. I'll call you later, though. After blowing off the Navarian ambassador, Ed meets Derulio in the mess hall with Kelly. Yeah, she's into him. And she's on to Ed's stupid moves. The accidental hand-touching, the over-grooming. On the bridge, the Bruidians are frustrated with their inability to reach the captain or the FO. Alara and Gordon report that Ed and Kelly are both acting weird, like they're both into Derulio. After a quick visit to check on the whereabouts of Dr. Finn, Alara realized that love is in the air, as if they've all been stabbed by Cupid's dagger.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got it.
Act 4, on the verge of all-out war, Ed and Kelly are competing for Derulio's attention. It looks like Ed is the winner as he makes dinner plans. Ilaria, finally able to question our forensic anthropologist, learns that Retepsians go through heat and excrete pheromones once a year. He shook hands with Ed and Kelly and tripped over Yaphet and kind of put that little piece of Yaphet back into Yaphet. And then he must have passed them on to Claire, who then, got really, really into Yaphet. Mm-hmm. Alara orders the one-man Blue Man group to the medbay to find an antidote. Looks like Lieutenant Dan got the elevator music working just in time for Ed's date, which he's gloating about with Kelly, and he's about to leave the straight life behind. In the conference room, the alien delegations wax warlike as Ed gushes over his impending dinner date. In the medbay, Nurse Park determines there is no known antidote. Derulio heads to his quarters as Bortus prepares for battle. Kelly is so upset at being left out of the Blue Man's plans that she's sobbing in her quarters to Carol King's Too Late. Captain Mercer's not answering Bortus' call. He just got out of the shower with Derulio still in bed. Wait, did they just? Do you know how hard it is to get blue out of your hair?
Ooh.
Derulio realizes there's a war about to start. The captain needs to stop it. Somebody needs to stop it. Isaac has a plan to tech the tech, but Chief Newton needs Yaphet to reach the tech. Problem is, Claire has grown obsessed with Yaphet and goes all fatal attraction on his mass. No teching the tech today. After an offer to help from Derulio, the two warning ambassadors appear holding hands, making marriage plans, and they order the two sides to bug out and head for home. In the medbay, Ed's a little weirded out, but feels fine. Claire's a little weirded out, but also feels fine. You see, the pheromones have worn off. Ed thanks Nurse Park for synthesizing a stronger version of Derulio's pheromone and planting it on the ambassadors. But what will happen when the pheromone wears off of them? Turns out the analysis indicates that the two sides have a common ancestor. The planet belongs to them both, and they'll have to share it. As Rob Blue prepares to leave, Kelly asks, last year when we, did it, were you in heat then? Derulio nods, then shakes his head, and then says, maybe. The end.
Oh, great recap. And honestly, Antidate might be my favorite, my new favorite thing on the planet.
That's true, yeah, because it's an antidote to, going on the date.
That's what I love about not being perfect in general, right?
Yeah.
If we chose to instead be embarrassed that we said the wrong word, then we don't have the joy of a brand new word,
Well, you taught me two things, so many things, when we were preparing for this sort of semi-live version of Mission Log that we do. If you make a mistake, man, just dig in your heels and stick the landing.
You did, and now we have Antidate.
Antidate. That's it. Cheers.
So you have cheers. with our awesome mission log cups. So you have a bunch of facts about this episode.
So
let's run through them.
Just a couple things. Directed by Jamie Babbitt. He's got 77 director credits all the way back to 1999. If anybody's watching Only Murders in the Building, with
I
Martin
am.
Short and Steve Martin and Selena Gomez, fantastic show. But direct there, written by Liz Heldon, consulting and executive producer for the Orville, as well as all 26 episodes so far. I'm hoping she'll be back for season 3. Also executive producer on The Passage with the great Mark Paul Gosselaar, and my pick to take over the role of James T. Kirk if Chris Pine opts not to come back.
Gosh, I had not thought about that.
Oh yeah, I've got a picture of those two side by side of Star Trek II Kirk next to MPG, and he looks great. Plus, let's face it, all of the Kelvin movies are kind of like Saved by the Bell in space.
I mean, you're 100,000% right.
So Chris Pine lies about something, probably gets in trouble about something else, kind of throws his crew under the bus. Everybody gets mad at him. But then he comes up big at the end, learns his lesson, and then you can go on to another episode where he does exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same
So
thing.
if it's going to be that formula, everyone, you might as well give the role to MPG because Zach Morris is perfect for that.
You are pulling at my nostalgia heartstrings right now. I don't think you understand. Now it's making sense why I don't not only love Chris Pine, not only love Kirk, also love Mark Paul Gosselaar. So I'm very excited by this idea.
Well, let's start a hashtag right now, like MPG for Kirk. I guess it's. I've been pushing it since Chris Pine initially refused to come back for Star Trek 4, which he was not contracted for. So let's make that clear. He was contracted for 3 movies.
Right.
But if they can get him to come back and play, great. But if they can't, I say Mark Paul Gosselaar, and let's move on.
God, I love that. Well, I just did on my stream what I do Twitch streams. We did the sexiest Star Trek characters. So we ranked them, and the highest tier was not S tier, it was Spock tier. Right. And the lowest tier is like don't go there or like trash tier. But Mark Paul Gosselaar, it would definitely. I think he would be a Wooga. Like we did a Wooga, which is A tier. Chris Pine and Kirk, young Kirk are both Spock tier, like hot tier. Anyway, I don't know. This is making me think a lot of things right now.
And that is, and this is where we're going on maybe a standard mission log, the Orville tangent at this point, and that's okay.
We better. I'm forcing us to. I hope you know that. I'm not.
Absolutely.
Don't cut this.
No.
or do actually. But yes, I love this. Okay, so music also over here.
But it was the Spock fans. It was mainly female Spock fans that were responsible for the letter writing campaign back in the 60s to keep Star Trek, the original series, on the air. And that is maybe a well-known fact for Star Trek fans, maybe not so much for Orville fans.
A good friend of mine, Jessie Gender, goes through this on one of her video essays that I had the pleasure of playing Kirk in about slash fiction, where people shipped Kirk and Spock, and that well, I guess, or Spurk. Women who loved that relationship. You're absolutely right. That was a big contingent. Like they kept that show alive for sure. 100%.
So as far as music, packed with music, I mean, John Debney has turned to do the score. We have Journey, Any Way You Want It, Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On. I screamed at the TV when we did not get to hear Bortus sing.
It's so sad.
I was so ready to hear him.
It's so sad.
Do that. We had the Ramones, with the great lead singer Joey Ramone with Wanna Be My Girlfriend, the song that Yaphet was singing to Claire. Carole King, Too Late Now. Boy, if that doesn't tug at your heartstrings, I don't know what does. And then Bobby Goldsboro with the elevator music, a song called The Straight Life, which has been recorded many, 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 many other times.
It's called The Straight Life?
Yeah, and the line as Ed was getting off the elevator was, leaving the straight life behind.
I missed that.
Yeah, it was actually subtitled, so I usually watch one all the way through with subtitles on just to kind of pick up on
smart
spellings of the names, because I don't know how to spell Navarian.
This again talks about how much Seth MacFarlane values music in his work.
Sure.
And so everything is like purposeful. And I didn't even think about My Heart Will Go On and Victor Garber.
Yes, so that was the little Easter egg there that you picked up on. So when I said, speaking of the Titanic, you were like, I think maybe
My
that
mind
my people
blew.
would be like, we didn't think of, what do you mean? Victor Garber, the shipbuilder.
I blued everywhere when you said that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so I'll jump right down to him. So we talked a little bit about admiral names too, right? So Admiral Halsey, named after Admiral William Frederick Halsey Jr. He was a fleet admiral in the United States Navy during World War II. And he commanded a task force in a series of raids against Japanese-held targets, and it was centered from an aircraft carrier. Take a guess at what the name of that aircraft carrier was.
Let me guess. Titanic.
No, ma'am.
Okay. That was a joke. I didn't think so.
It was the Enterprise.
What?
Yeah. So another little maybe Star Trek / just history Easter egg thrown in
I
the
love
mix
that
right
these aren't flukes. I love that like they just, have a list of admirals pulled up and they're,
Yeah.
That's cool.
So other guest stars, we got Rob Lowe coming back as Derulio, that Retepsian Lothario, J. Paul Boehmer as the Navarian ambassador. We just saw him as the Krill High Priest a few episodes in the episode Krill.
Right.
And Derek Mears was the Bruidian ambassador. He was in Zathora. Did you see Zathora? Dak Shepard?
I'm not. Oh, no.
Yeah. So he had a credit in there as the lead Zorgon. And then he was also in Enterprise. He played an Orion. And they kind of got into the Orion Syndicate area. So that's sort of the little bit about the production of the show. So what do you think of, what else did you pluck out of the episode?
So there's so much to talk about because it's funny. It's a funny episode. It actually tickles me pink to see Seth MacFarlane goo goo gaga over Rob Lowe because like Rob Lowe is just a dreamboat even in all blue.
Yeah.
Truly, like. So, and also, like, it's not a big deal that he's just into a guy. And Gordon's kind of, like, questioning him, like, really? Are you sure?
Well, and I do want to get to that. And
yeah.
I actually got that saved for later. But, yeah, there's, a couple of things. Look, Rob Lowe's a handsome, charming guy, right?
Right.
I've been seeing him ever since early 80s when I think, he came out in...
He's a brat packer.
He's definitely a brat packer. I'm trying to think of the, Stay Frosty Pony Boy, The Outsiders.
Oh, I never seen that.
So I'm in that early on. Youngblood, the hockey movie, obviously the St. Elmo's Fire, just a bunch of kind of John Hughes era films, if not all completely John Hughes. A little bit of Scandal. He did get canceled for a while. We were talking about cancel culture and that not being brand new, so he was canceled for a while, but did work his way back into mainstream. I do have a question about Yaphet though. Claire was like, Yaphet, go away. And he was like, hey, just give me 5 minutes as he breaks out the guitar and starts playing the Ramones. Wanna be my girlfriend. The only way to make a Ramones song 5 minutes long is probably to play it 3 times.
Got it. He did play it slowly though, too.
He did.
Like the tempo was slow.
It was a rearrangement, maybe of it. So there was that, but I've seen the Ramones in concert many times.
Oh, okay.
There is not a 5-minute song on the playlist.
That is so interesting. Well, maybe there's, just to give him a little bit more credit, maybe there was a little bit of more production that we didn't get to see. Maybe it was like a song and then something else,
and then a dance,
and then who knows, right? There could have been multiple ways that this
maybe the jelly wanted to dance.
So I remember when I was watching this episode the first time through, and I had no idea what was going on when Claire walked into Yaphet's room.
I didn't even know who it was until it got up to her face.
Exactly. So what my first impression was when I was trying to piece together, it was what an interesting left turn for the story to take. I thought we were all of a sudden dealing with a clone, a mirror universe Claire. I couldn't put it together that all of a sudden this woman who has vehemently fought him off is finally seducing him. I literally it was just so incongruent. I was excited because I had no idea where the story was going. And
I was really surprised. Like when they started to pan up from the floor up, I was sort of thinking like, is this one of the aliens? Is this like who is this person? Because it did seem so out of character, and now we know why. Which kind of reminds me of other Star Trek stories that we've had in the past. We had the Naked Time in the original series, where everybody kind of went a little crazy. That's where we have the famous shirtless Sulu.
That's right.
With the sword.
Yes.
And we have Spock kind of crying and falling in, maybe not falling in love, but lamenting the fact that he'll never be in love. He'll never feel that way. We had Kirk, who kind of pulled himself out of it and told Scotty that they had to cold start those engines because I think Kevin Riley shut the engines down.
That's
he took
right.
over engineering.
He got drunk,
decayed,
right?
And, well, they were all kind of acting drunk.
Yeah.
And then, so the orbiter was going to decay. And the only thing Kevin Riley wanted to do was give everybody ice cream. And in order to get the engine started, Scotty was going to have to take that 1 in 10,000 chance to cold start the engines, which Spock was able to pull himself together, figure out the formula. And they lived, which was great. And then they did basically the same exact episode in Next Gen as The Naked Now, which was only episode number 2 of Next Gen's run. And I threw me off a little bit because I thought, are we just going to be watching like line for line remakes of original series episodes? Because that would be pretty weak.
They were kind of doing that at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, but what I did like about this technique, this storytelling trope, if you will, is that they did use it as a character exploration. So you got to kind of see people with their inhibitions stripped away. You got to see people maybe with their, feelings and desires that they have to hide when they put on the Starfleet uniform. They can show those things. And, Kirk, who, people think of him as love him and leave him Kirk and, a playboy. His love was for the ship. And that's what showed through. And I thought that was an interesting character exploration for them. This one, we just had a few people affected. We had who? Claire?
Claire, Yaphet, kind of. We had the two opposing races.
Sure.
And we had Ed and Kelly. Right.
So those 5. So it's not a lot. I loved, you mentioned loving seeing Ed swoon over Rob Lowe. I did too. And I also loved the way he was admiring Kelly when she was singing at the beginning of the episode.
You were so right to point that out. You're so right to point that out.
You could really see that they were starting to, if not fall back in love, really, really fall back in like with each other.
He definitely admires her too. And what I actually thought was interesting as well, Kelly spun out about Derulio in a very similar way that Ed spun out in Derulio.
Yes.
And not just in the sense like everyone gets a little worked up about someone they like. They're just simpatico in the way that they're like, oh, does this person like me? And we've talked about this too with the actress Adrian, right? That's her.
Yeah. Adrian Palicki.
Yes, I know it had to be an incredibly I think choosing who his ex-wife /XO is going to be it was a huge, the whole show had to hinge on that for Seth. And so he made such the right choice in her because she's going to do the jokes, but not ham it up. But she also is going to be able to mirror and foil him at the same time.
Yeah.
In the role. Something I think that is, not only is it shocking that Claire was hitting on Yaphet, and we're actually seeing how he does do the sex. That is the one of the most.
Get to see just part of it.
Exactly, but when Alara walks in on them and Claire is up to her chest in Yaphet, it is the most gratuitous thing I have ever seen.
It really is, and
I'm so glad they weren't afraid of that, though. They went for it.
They did, and all I have to say is wow. I mean, Just wow. And I don't know how far I could take it beyond that on this show, but to be, completely enveloped. Because let's face it, I mean, when you are, when things are good, you kind of feel like you've melded into this single person.
Sure.
And, to be, completely enveloped as one sort of entity at that point, I think would be, I don't know, probably the ultimate experience. I
love that they weren't afraid to show. I love that we have seen so many different sides of Claire,
right.
And that we're not afraid to show her sexual side and the empowerment in that too. Granted, that we have this whole conversation that coming up is, the chemical aspect and the manipulation aspect of the pheromone. But putting that aside, man, it's something. We definitely it's a lot.
It's something. And then there's the, there's the Ed and Ed Gordon conversation when he's really excited. He's showing his excitement to go to dinner with Derulio. And, if there are times where, as somebody who kind of gets a chance to hang out with somebody that they think is cooler than they are, more in the in crowd, more influential, somebody that you've kind of admired for a while, just as a human being, that you do get that kind of, man, I get to hang out with these people tonight.
Yeah.
I need to look right. I need to act right. I need to be on my game. So I get that. I love that conversation about why you get up and this is definitely more food for the next segment of the show.
Sure.
But, why do do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Why do we need labels? Why do we need that? Why call a box a box? And Gordon just comes back with, it's just easier to have words.
Yes.
It's just such a, and I really, his character, who I thought we got introduced to him as, Gordon's drawn a lot of penises on a lot of things was, are the first mention of Gordon. So I really think his character's come a long way, and there is a lot of comic relief there, but I think just seeing the moral courage, the moral integrity that he showed in Krill when he pushed back and said, look, we're here on a peace mission. So his character to me has grown and is more than just a punchline at this point, but he still delivers a great one-liner.
Oh, I mean, that's why we also cast this actor to do all these things. But yeah, and you're totally right. But it is really funny to see the two best friends going, what the heck is happening? They're just really just trying to reflect back the choices that you're making. And
Gordon was being a great friend. And again, I want to chat about that a little bit later. Before we transition to the next part, I just kind of wanted to throw that this is probably the closest thing we've seen to maybe like a pure comedy episode. Other episodes, there's a little bit of comedy that kind of sucks you in. John Lamar, dry humping.
Yes.
Poor Mela Griffindon. But, then you get into more of a serious debate after that. This had a lot of comedy. I think there were some serious tones in there that I would like to talk about. I actually looked to see high stakes. I looked to see if this was maybe a Valentine's Day episode. It was not. It was released in November. So swing and a miss on that one, Mike Richards. Try again later.
Although I can't blame you for thinking that at all. I would have made the same assumption. But you're 100% right that this is the first. We're watching like the comedy of errors. This is like our Shakespearean,
yes.
Cross lovers, or you're totally right that we just leaned really heavy into like a sitcom tropic kind of thing.
Yeah. Whether you're a longtime fan of officially authorized ships, figures, and vehicles from Eagle Moss Hero Collector, or new to collecting, if it's the Orville you're looking for yourself, or as a holiday gift, then your ships have come in. Literally.
The Eagle Moss Hero Collector Shop is open, and it's ready to do business with collectibles from some of sci-fi fandom's most popular sci-fi shows, including ships from the Orville that are unavailable everywhere else in any other galaxy.
Just go to getyourtrekon.com now and just take a look at the variety of series and ships waiting for you there. Many of them are shop exclusives.
you have the Orville. You get the XL edition from the Orville itself, the ECV-197. It's an exploratory class vessel in the Planetary Union that serves as the primary setting for the show. This model is just over 10 inches, and it features 3 trademark engine loops at the rear.
Probe a little further and you'll encounter the ECV 197-1 shuttle. That's stowed aboard the Orville shuttle bay and used to ferry crew members to other ships or planetary surfaces.
Produced in partnership with the makers of the Orville TV series, each and every model is die-cast, hand-painted, and comes with a display stand plus an in-depth magazine featuring exclusive artwork and highlighting the ship's history, design, and place in the Orville lore.
But wait, there's more. There are also ships and other collectibles from the Star Trek universe, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate, even Space 1999. Something for absolutely everyone on your gift list.
And when you go to getyourtrekon.com now, you'll discover that 'tis the season for pop culture savings with 10% off of a purchase of $25, 15% off a $50 purchase, or 20% off a $75 purchase. Certain exclusions are going to apply.
To order, engage to getyourtrekon.com today.
Engage. Uh-oh. Can we say that? We can't say that.
We can say that.
We can say that.
All right, Jessica, so we've come to the part of the show where we explore the big ideas in this episode, Cupid's Dagger, as well as the messages, morals, meanings, and see if they align with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy.
Let's dig in.
Yeah, let's dig in. So we had themes of sexuality, manipulation, consent, those kind of things, all huge topics, should be, I would like to say, throughout the history of humanity.
Sure.
But it seems like they are definitely at the forefront of things today, and they should be. So I'll just pick one.
Great. Let's do it.
Let's talk about consent.
Sure.
Rob Blue, Blue had a little bit of the sex, we think, off camera. Maybe Ed was just kind of showering, but I think they probably did it.
Yeah, they definitely did.
Consensual?
We just don't know who got banged.
Who cares? Bang, get banged. You know, why you gotta put a
Maybe they were going to do it the other way, but they just got, distracted. I don't know, man. Here's the thing. Like, let's, I want to zoom in. I want to zoom out. It's just a TV show and it's just a funny episode, right?
Right. Yes.
So let's just acknowledge that we don't need to dissect that. But if we are dissecting it, there's actually complicated questions that this episode raises. Whereas, like, shouldn't he be quarantined? He's like literally spreading his pheromones everywhere. And there's a danger in that.
So there's a lot of house arrest going on in this episode, right? Lara, who, was holding the whole ship together,
truly,
along with Bortus and then ultimately Derulio as well. But Alara sent Yaphet to his room. He was under house arrest. I think, and at one point,
Derulio was too. But then,
so was he. And then they sent the ambassadors to their quarters without their communicators as well. Like, they were putting everybody in house arrest.
But Derulio slept with Ed while he was under house arrest, which is confusing. So maybe did Ed go to his room? He must have, right?
Yeah, no, that was we've seen Ed's quarters before.
And that wasn't Ed's quarters. Right. I got it. Which is even more suggestive. Like, here's the thing too, is there's nothing, they definitely did have consent. They had sex that with real feelings. And he says, it's chemicals. They're very real. Absolutely. The emotions that we feel for somebody sexually are derivative of chemicals going off in our brain.
That's what I've heard.
It doesn't mean that there isn't like a piece of the soul that is connecting with the person. There literally, so scientifically, we are attracted to people that have different immunities than us, so that when we create a baby, we're making a healthier baby. So there are people, like, typically why one is not attracted to their siblings, because your immunities are so similar. And there's, you know, there's something to be said for, like, you know, I think about this every time I'm on a plane. If the plane crash lands and this becomes lost, who of these men will become my lover? Like, who will I choose? Will I be so lucky as to have, you know, a guy that I will be? Because my point is, like, you can fall in love with someone with the mere exposure effect you can, just by getting to know them. But if someone's chemistry is too similar to yours, the chemical reaction is not going off in the same way. So something about Darulio's excretions,
pheromones,
yes, make him desirable to these people, or to whoever he comes in contact with, which just feels like a friggin' weapon. He should not be working during this time. It's completely irresponsible of him.
He should not be working at this time. And I think the fact that he was working at this time is probably a way of taking advantage of the situation.
It almost makes him like, I don't know that he's a good guy in this episode.
Now he does say that he comes from a culture that it's rude to say no to sex. He did drop that line in there. So different culture, different cultural norms.
Well, it is rude because everyone's probably sleeping with each other during the mate. Like, I mean, like,
yeah.
I just. There was another point that I had that I lost a little bit on my journey with the chemistry part of things. It, like, they clearly wanted, both parties wanted to have sex, whether their chemicals were saying yes or their minds were saying yes.
He said it's very real. It's just chemically induced.
And I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to manufacture like they were under drugs. And,
no,
you know.
Yeah. And then I just sort of wonder about how much we sort of play with those same kind of things. You know, are there certain perfumes that elicit the same kind of reaction? Are there certain looks that elicit the same sort of reaction? If you use those things to try to get somebody else to like you, is that manipulation? And is it beyond the realm of consent? And I think that's just, honestly, that's a bridge too far for me.
Well, and it's in the weeds,
saying getting
right?
dressed up to go on a date is manipulating consent or not is ridiculous.
Though, again, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. There are couples, like, where a woman 10 years into being married to a guy, or 5 years being married to a guy who stops wearing
19.
cologne. There we go. The guy stops wearing cologne, and she goes, "Oh my God, I hate his smell."
Yeah.
And because she never got to actually get the whiff of his real smell, which is another indicator of non-chemical compatibility if they don't smell good to you. So it is a fascinating subject when you think about, like, when you reduce us to the base animals that we are. But you know, what I do like about it, and it's actually, it's so dumb to say this, but it's brave of a man who we know traditionally to be straight. Like, a lot of people have speculated Seth MacFarlane's sexuality ad nauseum, which is like just no one's business. But to see what we understand to be a very straight man in this show, to just be really down to F this guy, it's really, I think it's really cool just to see that without judgment.
I do too. And, you know, so we talked a lot about, you know, I picked consent. I think we kind of also covered manipulation there,
sure.
Which leads us into your topic of sexuality. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it was cool. I'm glad they went there. I loved that Gordon was like, "Hey man, you can be whatever you want. I just want you to be happy." And this was the interesting thing. And he said, "Are you like into Darulio?" And Ed kind of went into, you know, whatever, you know, bang, get banged. Why do you got to put everything in a label? Why do you need everything in a box? That kind of thing. And, but back to the line, I did say too much there. He said, "Are you into Darulio?" And he said, "Well, what if I am?" and Gordon said, I just didn't know you were, and then stopped and got cut off.
Right.
So what do you think the last word of that sentence was? Gordon said, I just didn't know you were blank.
I think he was going to say, I didn't know you were gay.
Because that I think is probably a great choice. It's sort of, this kind of came up to me last night when we were having a chat and about something completely different on our Mission Log patrons, Mission Log After Dark on Thursday night.
Sure.
So if you guys haven't joined, please join our Patreon for Mission Log, and you can chat with us there. But this was a totally unrelated topic. We were talking about Star Wars, actually.
Star Wars.
Talking about Star Wars. And it was Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker going into the tree in episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. And he said to Yoda, what's in there? And Yoda said, only what you bring with you. So when I heard that line, I just didn't know you were blank. The first place my mind went was gay.
I see
but
what you're
it could have been, I just didn't know you were over Kelly.
Or into guys.
Yeah, I just didn't know you were, not mad at him anymore.
Yeah.
It could have been a lot of different things. But I think the fact that our, kind of social programming and that kind of thing and expectations, sort of pointed to the gay straight thing that was going on at that point. I don't know, man. I think we've actually gotten to a point in society where, we're understanding these things are on more of a spectrum.
Right.
And to deny that, there is a spectrum that exists probably makes me think that some people, doth protest too much.
Right.
But, so the bottom line, I love that Gordon was like, I just want you to be happy. He said, I just didn't know you were. And along with that lines, I think it might have been. I don't know what it was. I don't know. It's whatever you bring into it with you.
I'm going to say with the understanding of the implications, they didn't finish that line for the reason that we know that he's asking if he's gay or not. I think it's a very I know what you're saying, and it could be many things, and leaving it open-ended does leave room for less judgment, but the writers' rooms are no dummies, and they know that by not saying it, they are saying it.
Okay.
So that's just my take.
So you don't feel like it was an intentional.
Oh no, I do think it was intentional to not say it. Oh, go ahead.
Intentionally leaving options open so that it could have been one of many things. Because I think I just didn't know you were over Kelly was as maybe as valid a finishing to that sentence.
I would say you're right that it could be. I don't think the writer's room is. I think by not saying it, they're actually leaving less wiggle room than just by saying it.
Yeah.
I
so
honestly
what you're saying is if I'm in Texas and I hear hoofs outside my house and it sounds like a horse, it's probably not a zebra.
Probably not a duck. if it walks like a horse and it talks like a horse.
Okay.
And again, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think you're right. It is interesting that it also wasn't said explicitly.
Right.
Because you're right. It is almost closed-minded of Gordon to say that as well, in a sense. Because you're totally right that man, I'm pretty much as straight as the day is long, but I also have occasionally had feelings for women. Does that make that is on the Kinsey scale, right? Of things, and I think we all can, if we want to be honest with ourselves and others, can say, you know what, there was one time where that guy was really cute to me. I was like, his lips are pretty,
Well, I mean, like I said, you can't dig this deep into an episode guest starring Rob Lowe without recognizing the inherent handsomeness of the man and his charm, chemically induced or otherwise.
100,000%.
But I think I'm just kind of giving Gordon a little bit more credit.
I don't think he's being super close-minded. I think he's being a good friend, and I think we are looking at, I can relate to being Ed or Kelly, where I'm justifying a lot of my bad actions because of a boy, and my friends trying to reflect my choices back at me by asking me a series of questions. Yeah. So, what I have been famous for doing in the past is seeking advice until I get the advice I want. And no matter what.
And do you not listen to the advice you don't want?
Never. Why would I?
Because that's the advice you need to listen to.
Exactly. So I just recognize the chemical thing that's happening in these people who are just not thinking straight, for lack of a better not pun that I didn't mean. As I've gotten older, I only ask advice that I need, and I listen to those people, even if my heart's saying one thing or another, because I did a lot of damage the other way around, where I was just like, no, I'm just gonna. It's just a very human thing. It's a very normal thing to look for the advice that you want as opposed to the advice you need.
Yeah, and I think I know we touched on that on an earlier show, I think. So it seemed like with all the sort of verbal sparring that Ed was doing with himself, with Gordon in the room with him, that Gordon was like, okay, I just need to get caught up. Like,
right,
you're my friend. I want you to be happy. I'm just. What's happening?
Right. And for those of you that are hearing a little bell or some purring, I have a cat on my lap. In case.
Very nice.
Yeah, she's a sweetie. Well, I think any good friend would be like, hold on, you hated this guy because he helped your wife cheat on you, and now you want to F him. So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like there
exactly.
is
like, hey, I'm your friend. I want you to be happy. Just wait. What's happening again?
Totally. And again, I think you're exactly right. Like leaving the question open-ended actually doesn't let us judge Gordon as much, but I do think he was about to ask that question. I do.
And I think that was probably. Oh, I just, obvious things are obvious to different people, but to me it was but my first watch, I thought that was the obvious ending to the sentence. And then as I rewatched, I thought he could have been saying anything. I don't really want to apply my.
I think that may be the artistic choice then, too, of the writers, is to go, we don't need to label that.
Yes.
Like, I really do think the onset of understanding sexuality in the more nuanced ways that we do as a society now is helpful for people who need. We all have identity struggles, and some of us, our identity exploration comes through our sexuality. We're just not exactly sure if, like I've always said, I feel very grateful that I align with what the society deems as normal with my sexuality, and that I feel grateful that I was born into a body that I feel like I align with as well. And there's a lot of people who judge our like millennials and Gen Z as being the most gay of societies. We're like 39% gay, whereas like societies prior to us were like 15 or whatever.
That admitted it.
Exactly.
That openly identified that way. So, that weren't hiding it.
Well, and
because they
that's
didn't feel
just
like they had to hide it.
That's just it. It's like, it's so dim to think that, because the argument is like, well, they're being manipulated, or, because we're too open about it as a society. Because we're open about it, people are actually able to be honest with themselves about it
and be themselves. What a concept. I mean, I think it's great.
And it's I guess what the thing that, like, if we want to get more philosophical about this, just take one step outside of this episode, when people push back on other people's lifestyle choices, or not choices, or lifestyles, or ways of being, their identity is being challenged, and they're not comfortable with that. So this is one of the main reasons I think people are anti-gay and anti some other life choices, like literal choices, because they are not willing to explore what that world means if they don't fit into it the way that they were raised to be in that world.
And up until fairly recent history, I mean, I don't know that there were television representations of gay adults really anywhere other than, kind of the strange one-offs here and there, until much, much, much more recently than when I was a kid. So to see somebody in society, to see somebody on your television that you can relate to, that you feel represents you, that you feel you can see yourself in them, and you never see that, how are you supposed to act that way? How are you supposed to feel like it's okay to be that way?
You can't, because society is also telling you you can't be that way. So
now I think since there is more representation, it does make it more okay for people who are more diverse, maybe I would dare I say infinitely diverse, in infinite combinations, to act more and more in a way that is them and not just, you got two options, this or this. Pick one, and no matter what happens, you have to act like that, like you fit in no matter what. That's terrible. It's terrible.
Oh my God. Add to that too, exactly what you're saying. Not even like, oh, now I'm this person, like, oh, now that I can be gay, I'm gay. Why not just like figure it out? Like, why, like, you can figure it out on the fly and it not have to be a big deal. Now, if you think about it, before the Hays Code, there was homosexual representation in film.
Can you fill us in on the Hays Code for those of us other than me that don't know what that is?
Not you, yeah, definitely.
Definitely not me. No, I know exactly about the Hays Code.
Correct. Is the onset of the golden era of Hollywood, where someone named Hays basically took over Hollywood and created a set of moral codes that movies had to ascribe to. Only heterosexual couples, kisses could only be a certain length, cleavage could only be shown to a certain, like, so basically this was like a
well, that's where I draw the line right there.
Correct. There was it was basically a huge backlash to the 20s and like this open lifestyle that a lot of people had in so many different ways. And, you know, so the Hays Code ends up shaping movies for the next 30 years, because even through the 50s we're getting like The Perfect Life and this, you know, nuclear family or whatever. So there was basically an erasure of counterintuitive lifestyles and artistic movies. That's why you guys kind of got so like if a woman cheated in a movie, like in Double Indemnity or something like that, the woman had to die. That was part of the Hays Code. So when we were doing, when my improv group, Ripley Improv, was doing one of our shows during quarantine called Slay, it was a monster hunting show, and everyone had different things. Wait, why are you smiling?
I feel like I need a bell for each one of these things.
What things?
My improv group, Ripley Improv, was doing our show.
Because it's okay. Because I'm selling it, I'm pitching it. Oh, no, God.
I know you're just telling the story.
Well, I just don't want to like assume everyone knows what I'm talking about. So, because I was about to be like, this show, everyone knows what anyway, so Ripley Improv, we did a show called Slay, and it was basically a bunch of women that are slayers, monster slayers, and every one of us got assigned different research. And one of our team members, Riley Silverman, did research about the gay lifestyle and monsters. And so even though you couldn't be represented as gay, there's a double-edged sword to this, so I will say that as well. But villains were representative of the queer lifestyle. You have like these very, like, Ursula's like this broad, like drag queen almost. And so they were able to live under the surface with, the villains just like were on the outside of society or what have you. Now, it was also used negatively when you think about like Baron Harkonnen is evil because he's attracted to young boys. And then that's part of his evilness. And then, Silence of the Lambs, that's when they horrified transgenderism. Yes. So like it does have like good and bad stakes to it. But in a way, there is an undercurrent of representation living right underneath the surface in villain representation. It's fascinating.
It really truly is. I think we could go on and on about this because there's so much, and I do apologize because I have been opinionating about things that I've never lived through, that I've never about situations I've never been in. And
who are you apologizing to and for what?
Anybody, say that, hey, it's, in this day and age, it's, you should be comfortable being who you are, and you should have, you have more representation so you can, there's more doors open for people. There's more opportunity to, live a lifestyle that suits who you are on the outside as well as who you are on the inside. And I say those things, and, I say those things to my kids, and, and I really feel that way. Yeah. But I kind of feel like I have this sort of two-dimensional understanding of what it's really like to live in a different way.
I would offer this to you that I don't think you need to apologize. I think you're doing it exactly right, where you're just open to new information. I've not heard anything you say is worth apologizing for. I think there's a lot of different things that we need to learn as a society, and it isn't just. The buck doesn't stop with sexuality. It's also with other cultures. You and I have had the privilege of living in America where the culture satisfies us, where we don't have to step outside of our culture and go, well, let me understand these people or understand these people. So we have a lot of different challenges in front of us to understand things. So you can't apologize for not knowing that. So I'm just saying, I hear you and I respect what you're saying. You're doing a great job, though. You are so open.
Thank you. And I think there's just many challenges I think that people face that I don't comprehend.
And when you hear them, you're open to that, though. So I think that's about as good as you can get.
Well, thank you very much. So speaking of that, have we been able to pluck any messages, morals, and meanings? And how do we feel about the show aligning? Soft pause. Go ahead.
No. This is the one thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
I don't think when Derulo is asked whether he was in heat last year, I don't think he was.
I don't think he was either. I think that was his way for a couple of reasons. One, I think it was his way, and he did definitely show some redemption throughout this episode, because he went to the window when Ed was still completely infatuated with him and could have gone another round, you know?
Yeah.
Just came out of the shower, could have had a brand new canvas to paint on. And he walked over to the window and said, there's a war about to start. Somebody has to stop it. And he left, and he went to the bridge and said, I can help. Mm-hmm. So I think we saw more depth in his character at that point. And at the end, when he did that, kind of head nod, head shake, looked right at Kelly and said, maybe. I think that was his way of letting her off the hook. Yeah.
Because he looked at Ed first and decided, what does this man need to hear?
Yes,
that's what and again, it is Rob Lowe's interminable charm. He said it was definitely a Rob Lowe delivery for sure.
And I also, for what little we saw, we didn't see that little. We got a decent look at this in Old Wounds. We didn't see Kelly sort of under that level of influence. She didn't say, Ed,
I'm in love. I'm crazy.
I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm in love with this blue Retepsian, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him.
Right.
It didn't go there. She was like, you were gone. I'm sorry, you were gone. I have needs. Well, that was kind of the conversation. It wasn't, I'm in love with him. It wasn't, he's so good looking. Oh my God. Kind of the conversation she was having with Alara.
Which Alara's like, what?
he's wait, what? By the way, I know I have been, sort of week in and week out, and I think it's been maybe a couple of weeks since I've really pointed out the acting chops that I think Adrian Palicki has. You brought it up this week, so I appreciate that.
Fair.
But Halston Sage, man, just knocked it out of the park in this episode. Like, she was the one that was talking to different people, connecting the dots, taking charge, and gathering enough information to be able to sort of share that information and then help people come to the right decisions.
Totally.
So if she didn't hear what Gordon was saying about Ed, if she didn't connect that with what was going on with Claire and Yaphet, and if she didn't go to the source, identify and then go to the source, who was Derulio, then none of this would have gotten taken care of. So she really did help pluck things together.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I'm just this is the hill I'm gonna die on. If Rob Lowe's character, Derulio, knew that he was in heat, he should have never shaked their hands. He was the one that offered his hand. He should have known. He should have been wearing gloves.
Should have been.
He's a bad guy.
Definitely. Now, it's one of those things that maybe you're contagious for a day or two before you realize it.
That's like my period when I'm about to cry. When I realize I'm crying a lot, I'm like, oh, it's period time.
That's what's happening. When my sign that I'm catching my, if I get, usually I'll catch, I'll get like a cold or flu like once a year.
Right.
And, a few days before that, I just start to get really grumpy. And I'm just like, I'm grumpy. And then next thing I know, I'm sick. So those two things kind of go together. So in that period of time, who knows, maybe I infected.
All right. You're giving him the benefit of the doubt that I don't want to.
But you're right. I mean, even if you're coming up, it's time. So,
well, no, I'm going to do it. What do you think? the morals, messages, and meanings of the show are, and do they align with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy?
Oh man, we turned over quite a few stones that honestly I wasn't even anticipating in the last segment. So, the acceptance from yourself, from your friends, to explore facets of yourself that have theretofore gone unexplored. I think that is a viable, natural option that people should be willing to explore, and their friends, family, people close to them who have known them only to be a certain way should support.
Yeah, I don't think we're seeing them not support them. I think we are seeing them go, something else is going on here, because we're seeing them being not rational, right?
Yeah, out of character. But like I said, it comes back to me with Gordon saying, "Hey man, I just want you to be happy."
Yep.
Just can we back up and can you tell me what's going on here? Because a lot's happened since the last time I saw you. But again, just wanted to help you there. The chemically induced feelings. We've been hearing about that. I am not a brain scientist. I am not a rocket surgeon. I do not know any of the kind of inner workings of how these things do. But I have heard repeatedly my whole life that love is a chemical reaction. Mm-hmm. There's dopamine involved. There's synapses and neurons and things like that. And,
right.
To manipulate that, as was happened in the show, is an interesting conversation. It really, really is. And it sort of very much did get to how overwhelmed you can get by those feelings to the negative impact of your relationships with other people.
Wow.
To your work ability to do your job. So you have Ed and Kelly, who are obviously getting very, very close again, as judged by the goo goo eyes,
right?
During her, bringing it home with Journey. All of a sudden, Ed falls in love, Kelly falls in love, a chemically induced, unhealthy, kind of obsessive kind of relationship, and they're kind of at each other's throats after that. So that is a really important sort of perspective to take back, that if you are going to be in a healthy relationship, it should not come at the detriment of the people that you love already, the people that you are close to already. And that is what happened to really both of them. The Claire Yaphet thing,
At worst, they had nice sex.
Yeah. Claire's a little weirded out. Hopefully they'll get over it. There was no real resolution to that either. She was just like, hey, I don't want to see him again. Probably too soon. But, heading into season 3, sadly, I don't think I don't think they'll be Yaphet.
Mike.
So.
No, Mike.
Well, it's sad.
I know, but
and it's sad that she said that, because I was like, aw, and now he's not going to come back.
Well, I wonder if they got some recordings done with him before he died. I wonder. I am curious about that. I'm glad that we didn't talk about this too much, but you're totally right about how your actions do affect people. And we're bought and sold this idea that love trumps all, right? Like all is fair in love and war. And when I have acted that way, I have hurt more people in my life, including myself, in the pursuit of something that wasn't healthy. And that was a lot of chemical induction. So you're totally right that that's like a worthwhile thing to explore. I think while again your point, I agree with your point that this is more like a straightforward rom-com whatever. I also think we're looking at just normalizing lifestyle choices. Okay, that's like I'm saying lifestyle choices, and that's not the right way to put it. It's normalizing chemicals and your attraction to people.
Yes.
that society has not otherwise deemed normal. So yeah. I'm all for just normalizing that, ripping the Band-Aid off, and showing different inclusive stories.
Just people being people, man. I love to be into a situation where you can just look at people as people.
Yep.
Not as, like Ed said, putting them in a box, putting labels. Why do we even call boxes boxes?
Why do we call boxes boxes?
So I think that was a great conversation. I keep coming back to that conversation between Ed and Gordon. That to me, I think, really was the heart of the show for me, sort of wrapped up in a very small nugget. I was going to chat about something else, and I completely lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. Was it about the Navarians and Bruidians?
No, it wasn't about that. It was about this. So when you or anybody, when I have in my past been sort of briefed on, how do you know when you have a problem? How do you know if you're gambling too much? How do you know if you're drinking too much? How do you know if you're
playing too many video games?
How do I know if I'm out in the garage working on my car too much? When it starts to affect your family and your job negatively, that's how you know it went too far. So you have Ed and Kelly, and like it or not, they're family for one another. So are the rest of the people up on the bridge that we like to call Central Perk. And it was negatively impacting the relationship with their coworkers. It was also negatively impacting their job, which I think is a clear indicator that what they were doing was unhealthy and really probably not sustainable.
If you or a loved one has a problem with loving blue men, go to ML_the Orville on Twitter and reach out to us.
I could just see the disclaimer for the Terepsian commercial for the Blue Man Group.
Oh,
where they're like,
do not feed the Terepsians.
If you feel like you have a problem with addiction to the Blue Man Group.
Oh my goodness. Vegas has a whole new slew of addicts running in town. Well, Mike, as always, I very greatly appreciate your insight into things and openness to share your experiences and willingness to hear things that maybe you hadn't heard before.
And same with you. I learn something every day, and folks, if we miss something, let us know. You've got our social handles on Twitter and Facebook. You can send us an email as well. Last little thing I had was maybe just a little bit more trivia, but the fact that the Navarians and the Bruidians had a common ancestor kind of reminded me of the episode The Chase from Next Gen.
I don't know if I remember that one.
They were chasing down some I think it was when Picard was going through his archaeological stage, which just sort of kind of came, just sort of built over the course of the season. And they were trying to track something down. So were the Romulans, so were the Cardassians, so were the Klingons. Kind of all the typical, cast of characters. Kaiser Soze was there, I think. And they found out that they all had sort of a common ancestor that was spread by this group that looked an awful lot like the female changeling from Deep Space Nine. But common ancestor, so common things in tie, and that tie them together, and they're going to have to share the planet. So your enemy is not your enemy, and I think that's a very Star Trek theme as well.
Totally right.
Yeah, so for a rom-com sort of comedy episode, there was an awful lot of Star Trek in here, and I will say that it holds up to the Star Trek Roddenberry philosophy. I mean, if we include things like I Mud and a piece of the action and things like that, and as canonical Star Trek, which I'm not a canonista, but they're there, and we've got to acknowledge that they're there. And this is here, and I think it was a pretty good episode. I think it had some nuggets to explore, and let's face it, we're an hour into this, and we're still talking about it.
Totally. It is one of my more favorite episodes, and it's one of the more memorable ones, so I'm glad we got to finally talk about it.
Excellent. Well, Mission Log, The Orville, is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcasts.roddenberry.com.
Please join us next time on Mission Log, The Orville, as we discuss Firestorm. This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.